to really 999.
Tonight on 999, electrocuted and drowned in a paddling pool.
It probably was the worst scenario you can actually have.
And Jaffa the pony's amazing escape. This is London's Central Ambulance Control, the biggest in Europe. More than 50 operators take around 3,000 emergency calls every day. In just 90 seconds, they can dispatch a conventional ambulance, the HEMS helicopter, or paramedic motorcyclists, in some cases, all of them. But when 14-year-old Craig Bowes was involved in a serious accident in his garden, the only thing that could save him was the voice on the end of the telephone. Our story is based on the actual call that came in here to the control centre.
Tell me exactly what's happened.
I'm not sure. He was in the pool and there's a pump in the pool and it's an electric pump.
Right, who is it, a child?
Yeah, 14.
14?
Yeah.
Right, have you switched all the electric off?
Yeah, it's all off.
You switched it all off?
Yeah, well, what's I supposed to do because he's laying on the floor?
He's out of the pool, is he?
Yeah.
Right, now just listen to me carefully. The ambulance will already have been dispatched, so by talking to me, you're not holding it up, OK? Lungs are probably full of water, he's not breathing, and he's been electrocuted. So it probably was the worst scenario you can actually have.
I've got a 14-year-old male, Dave, query electrocution here.
What code's that on?
1959.
There's someone who's actually on the HEMS desk, and they actually look at every call that comes in and they decide whether they think a paramedic or the HEMS should go.
Number 301, thank you. Further emergency call.
SC12, when you're ready, please, over.
301, send over.
Got a 14 for this 4-year-old boy.
Query electrocution.
Query drowning. Query suspended.
Yeah, roger that.
When someone's suspended, it means that their heart stops and they're not breathing by themselves. It was a bit of a nightmare, really, when we got it. It's bad enough getting a drowning and an electrocution all in one go, but for the patient to be query suspended as well.
And we're also going to dispatch HEMS, all right?
HEMS is the emergency helicopter service, which is used quite often in London because they can get, obviously, through quicker than an ambulance can. Right, have you switched all the electric off?
Yeah, it's all off.
You switched it all off?
Yeah, well, what's I supposed to do because he's laying on the floor?
He's out of the pool, is he?
Yeah.
Right, is he conscious or unconscious?
Is he conscious? He's in shock, I'm not sure.
Right. A lot of people don't understand conscious. What I really should have said was, is he awake and able to talk to you? Because people can relate to that, rather than conscious and unconscious.
Southeast 12 call when you're ready, Ava.
47, receive it.
It's given us a 14-year-old male. Query electrocution, query suspended.
Roger, Branding Crescent, Southeast 12, electrocution and shock in pool.
My first, worry was that they wouldn't actually be able to get him breathing again. I need you to go out and check that the child is breathing and come back and tell me if he is and whether he's conscious or unconscious, OK?
OK. I don't think he's breathing.
I could actually see this paddling pool right at the end of the garden, and all these people were relaying messages. I was telling him and he was shouting up to the end of the garden to somebody else. And I could just see it all, the patio doors, the paddling pool at the end of the garden, and all the chaos that was going on. I could hear people shouting and screaming. Can you bring him in nearer to the phone and I'll tell you what to do? Can you bring him in?
Bring him in? He's in there down the back of the garden.
Right, well, can you get him into the phone and then I can tell you what to do? Can you carry him in?
I can tell them you tell him what to do.
Right, OK, you need to get him on his back.
Get him on his back.
OK, now you need to tip his head back as if he's like in the sniffing position and pinch his nose.
On his back, he's going purple. On his back! Tip his head back.
Right, pinch his nose.
Pinch his nose.
And then breathe, blow into his mouth.
Blow into his mouth, as if you're blowing up a balloon. Just do it!
When he's blowing into his mouth, is his chest rising?
Is his chest rising when you blow? He's gargling.
Turn him onto his side.
Turn him onto his side and let him spit it out. So I've got to do it again.
Yeah, no, not if he's breathing. If he's breathing.
Is he breathing?
I wasn't reassured that he was breathing because sometimes people do gurgle when they're trying to resuscitate them and they've got any fluid in their throat at all, and it does make a gurgling noise. But I'd quite like to have been there, and because it's much easier to do it yourself than it is to actually try and tell somebody, and you always wonder whether they're actually doing it exactly as you're telling them to do it.
Just stuck in here, siren.
Are they there?
Oi, Andrew, they're coming. He said he's the one who's laying down saying it's hurting.
What's hurting?
I don't know. What's hurting him? What's hurting him?
Your ears are just peeled just listening for that siren, and once you hear it, it's the most wonderful sound in the world.
Sometimes we are confronted by screaming relatives, shouting and screaming, why did we take so long? When people are on scene and they're waiting for an ambulance, the time seems to stretch.
Come down, let's hurry into the back garden.
All right, my name's Tony. What's happened?
OK, son, are there parents around?
No, just over the road.
Can you go and get them for me now, please, son? We've got to take it to the hospital.
You've got to come.
What's the matter?
Come on, you've got to come.
And I went out and I saw the police and the ambulance, and then I knew there was something wrong. I didn't really know what it was. The thoughts went through my head of just sheer panic.
He's alive.
What do you mean he's alive?
I was gobsmacked. I didn't know. I said, what do you mean he's alive? Because at that point, I did not know what had happened.
Right, all right. Good. You normally a fit and well young man?
It was my worst nightmare. I don't think I could ever imagine anyone else going through that.
That's it. All right, Mum. All right, Mum. He's going to be fine.
It's all right, darling.
He's going to be fine.
I'm here.
He's going to be fine.
Don't worry about it. Why didn't you watch him? What happened? Tell me what happened.
I didn't mean it.
What have you done to him?
Sorry.
Did you say what he was on there? Did he talk to you?
Why didn't you look? You're so stupid. I mean, every time. Why didn't you just look out for him?
It's just scary when you think what could have happened. Someone could have died in the back garden. Like in the back, my house, in the back garden of my house. We were in the garden, hot, bored. It was halfway through our summer holidays, and we were fed up and wished we were back at school.
Get me wet one more time, I'm going to come in there.
And we said, yeah, let's clean out the paddling pool so we can just sit in it and cool down, basically. And he said, yeah, that's a good idea. The pool was full up and we were all just sitting in it, cooling down. Chris brought out an electric pond pump. And he said, yeah, it's to squirt the water up, just give it some more atmosphere, basically. And basically, I got in it first, yeah, thinking it was all right, but then Chris said, yeah, wait there, I'm going to unplug it and go get an extension lead. And I just had a really awkward, disturbing feeling that something was going to happen.
Come on!
When I plugged it in the second time, it sparked.
What? What's wrong? What's wrong?
I couldn't move, it was like holding me there.
Hurry up! Come on, hurry up!
I didn't know that Craig was like dying. I just thought he was feeling the same thing as me, but then as I turned around to him and he weren't like, he was just silent.
Give us a hand! Get him out! Top, Andy!
As soon as the electric went off, he just went all relaxed and limp, and he just stopped screaming. He just slid under the water. His back just rubbed against the edge, and he went completely under, and he was floating. Me and Andrew dragged him out, and he was blue, his lips were blue, his face was completely white.
Think! Come on! Well, you should knock him!
And I checked for his pulse, and he didn't have a pulse, and then I was panicking.
What should we do now? What should we do?
And at this time, Chris was on the phone to the operator, and she was telling us what to do.
Tip his head back! On his back!
But we all thought he was dead. He looked dead.
Blow twice into his mouth, as if you're blowing up a balloon.
You just do it!
I was doing chest compressions, and I was just thinking, I hope he's going to survive. I just wanted him to live. I was just hoping it would pull through and live. When Craig came around, I felt very relieved because I knew he was going to be all right. I knew he was alive because dead people don't groan. It felt so good, just, one, to save his life, two, he was my best friend.
Just keep an eye on his breathing. Do you want me to stay on the phone with you, or do you want to go?
She just like saved my friend's life because she was keeping me calm. She was telling me exactly what to do, and it like helped a lot.
Mum.
It's all right, I'm with you, darling.
My first thought was, why didn't you come and get me? But if they had done, he probably wouldn't have been here because it was the timing that was so important, because the doctor said that because they reacted so quickly, that's why he's here today.
Bill, can you cancel HEMS for us? Selling patients package ready to go. We're going to Lewisham.
GCS of 15, hemodynamically stable. Mike Sierra, not required, ever.
Ready?
And then I just remember seeing coloured lights and hearing a noise. And I just remember waking up into the ambulance and then screaming and shouting, telling my mum I was sorry.
Oh, it was great. It was good to turn up and have the lad conscious, really. It was great for him to be conscious, let alone talking.
I didn't really put anybody at the other end of the line that Chris had spoken to until I read the transcript of the tape. And I think Paula done wonderful to do what she done. Well, you won't do it again, will you?
No, not in a hurry.
Craig was discharged from hospital 3 days after the accident.
I've never met anybody before as a 999 operator. It'd be really nice to meet them. I'd really like to. Hello, you must be Craig's mum.
Yeah.
I'm Paula.
Hello,
999
Paula.
operator.
Oh,
how do you do?
Oh, dear.
Hello.
Hello, Paula.
How do you do?
Oh, it's so nice to see you. Oh, it's
That's all right, it's nice to see you.
Oh, it's caught me all emotional now. Oh.
I didn't really think it would be emotional, but it was more emotional than I thought it would be, and it was really, really nice.
It was an emotional reunion for Craig too, meeting the woman who saved his life.
Hello, ambulance service, can I help you?
But with more than 3,000 calls coming in every day, it's business as usual at London Ambulance Control.
You're actually suffering from.
Got an adult male, there's a known cardiac with abdo pain.
We may be a nation of animal lovers, but it might surprise you to hear that emergency services the world over treat animal rescues in exactly the same way as human ones. For the rescuers, a life is simply a life. What you're about to see is the selection of the best animal life-saving from all over the world, and all of it filmed as it happened.
Now come out here. That's it, don't let her go.
Much loved pets or farm animals, they're all the same to the rescuers. In South Wales in 1998, farmer John Caulfield's prize cow Blodwyn got stuck in a ditch. The fire brigade knew it wasn't going to be an easy job getting her out.
If you look at the terrain around there, you know, it couldn't have got into a worse position from our point of view, really.
I thought to myself, you got it, old girls. Where you are there, unless we can lift you up from there, you're not going to walk out.
But there was another complication. Blodwyn was heavily pregnant.
The calf was not our main priority,
No,
really. The fact that the cow could break a leg and then we'd lose 2 lives, that was our main concern.
There was no alternative to get her out apart from to hoist her up.
A tractor was brought in to help lift Blodwyn from the ditch.
We had the vet out to sedate her, which helped matters a lot, because if she struggled, she could have harmed herself. But once we sedated her, she sort of didn't have a care in the world what we did to her.
Though drowsy, Blodwyn was distressed enough to put up a struggle. There were fears that the harnesses were placing too much pressure on the unborn calf, reducing its chances of survival even further.
And the ground wasn't that stable.
The wall behind us, with the weight of the tractor and everything, it could have come down on the crew.
After 3 hours of careful manoeuvring, Blodwyn was hauled to safety. The vet was happy there were no broken bones, and exhausted, Blodwyn was taken back to the farm. But her exertions weren't over yet.
We heard the news the following morning that the cow had given birth to a calf, and the whole crew were highly delighted, very pleased.
The calf, a strapping 170 pounds at birth, and her courageous mum are both doing well. 8,000 miles away in Monterey, California, heavy rain in 1998 caused major flooding. Rescuers were called out to reports that a person had been heard crying for help in the torrential waters. A fireman waded in to rescue the victim and was amazed to find not a drowning human, but a dog, only weeks old, half drowned, freezing cold and barely alive.
Okay, climb down.
Time was running out for the puppy. His body temperature had slipped dangerously low and his lungs were full of water. Firemen gave him emergency oxygen and did their best to warm him up. Their efforts weren't in vain. Soon the puppy was back on his feet and up to his old tricks again, with a queue of people wanting to give him a new home. Still in California, vet Chrissy Bohr holds in her hands the cat she's just spent half the night helping to rescue. The cat had got stuck in the wall cavity of a restaurant Chrissy was eating at. On hearing the animal's distressed cries, she wasted no time in calling her vet colleagues to the restaurant to begin the difficult task of getting the cat out.
I mean, the cat was stuck. It was not going anywhere. And you just hear this cat crying, and it was so heartbreaking.
How close do you think you are?
We're about a foot this side of her. She's like right over here, and about 30 inches down.
It took about 2.5 to 3 hours of jackhammering, and we got a hole big enough so that we could spot the kitten.
He looks really dehydrated.
Yes, he does. Can we get some water in there?
And it just seemed like a huge ordeal for, you know, one little kitten as far as a lot of people were concerned. You know, you could see pieces of debris falling on it once we got to the point where we were almost through the wall. The cries were so pathetic, and you could hear the cat actually getting more and more stressed, but it was also getting weaker.
Don't pull the camera down, don't move. Oh, okay.
There we go.
Put him in here. Oh, it's just a boo-boo. Oh, it's a baby. Hey, he looks pretty darn good. Don't get bit. Yeah. Okay, hydrated. Put him in. Okay, taking him back.
I honestly couldn't tell you that. I don't even remember anything other than the cat landing in front of me. Just knowing that it was out, it was just such a relief.
Some of the most distressing situations involve animals that go missing and lie injured and undetected for hours, even days. One of those stories happened in 1997, here in this field, an extraordinary rescue filmed by a local news team. Jaffa the pony here escaped death not once, but twice in one day. This is his remarkable story. Verity Reed Hall had saved Jaffa's life once already. She'd paid £20 for him at a meat market. Since then, he'd become part of the family.
Are you gonna have a question?
Jaffa has taught like 2 generations of children in this village to ride, and that everybody thinks Jaffa's wonderful.
Come follow me.
Then, one day, he simply disappeared.
When I came out here, the horses were just standing around grazing as they usually do, except for Jaffa. He wasn't anywhere to be seen. We did phone the police, we did make sure he wasn't stolen, but there was no Jaffa.
Jaffa! Jaff!
Despite frantic searches for most of the day, by nightfall there was still no sign of Jaffa. This part of Cornwall is littered with disused mine shafts, and what Verity didn't know was that the ground she walked on had literally swallowed Jaffa up.
We were walking across and my dog jumped over something.
Jaffa!
What's that? We all turned and this very great hole. I said, that's it, it's down a hole, it's a shaft. We couldn't see the bottom, we couldn't see anything. So we just thought that he'd fallen down and broken his neck or something, he was dead.
Unable to mount a rescue in the night, Cornwall Fire Services sent Division Officer John Warren to assess the situation the following day.
I shone a torch down and I was mesmerised because I could actually see the horse stood up and he was looking up at me. And his eyes were shining in the torch beam and I just couldn't believe it.
He was convinced he was fine, but I didn't really believe him because he could be sort of all his legs broken with his looking up. I mean, how can you tell a horse is fine? But he was convinced, so we decided to go ahead and try and rescue him.
Once they'd assembled their rescue winch, the fire crew knew they'd have to secure a sling around Jaffa in order to get him up. Fire Officer Stuart Whitworth was lowered 100 feet down the shaft to find out if Jaffa really was unhurt.
Well, I couldn't believe it when I got down to the bottom. The horse was, just stood on all fours and it appeared to have no injuries at all. It just looked absolutely perfect.
Now up. Right, up.
With the sling attached, the long, difficult process of hauling Jaffa to the surface began. With firefighters, Verity and other villagers all working together, there was ample pulling power. But the ropes were becoming twisted and friction was beginning to fray the hessian until, with feet to go, they snapped.
Keep it going.
Everything was going smoothly, and we got from about 20 feet to the top of the shaft.
All right. OK, Jaffa.
And I heard this almighty bang.
Let's stand back.
Yep.
My heart just dropped. I mean, if he had been all right the first time, the second time I thought he's got to be, that's it.
There was just total shock. And from my memory, it was just, there was a silence. How ironic and how terrible that we, as rescuers, that attempted to rescue this animal, and then we killed it.
Although that was everybody's first thought, they knew they would still have to get Jaffa out, whatever state he was now in.
That's good. All right, Stu. Yeah.
I was lowered back down the bottom of the shaft, and it didn't look very good at that stage. The horse was actually on its side, and it looked like it was in a bit of pain. By the time I got myself down onto the ground, it basically sort of shook itself and jumped up onto all fours again.
All right, Stu.
By now, a local news team had arrived and captured these remarkable pictures.
More on the horse, less on
As far as I was concerned, he was going to come up and he would be fatally injured and we would have to put him down.
But you've got to chop that way, Stu. Keep it going, keep it going.
It was awful. I was just thinking, this horse has gone through so much.
Come on. He'll take it out, he'll take it out. Come on. Steady, steady, Jaffa.
And now it's got to go through this.
Steady, Jaffa.
And probably be shot at the end of it.
Steady, Jaffa.
Finally, after 30 hours in darkness, having survived a 100-foot fall twice, Jaffa was free.
Let's get it back out the way. Get it back out the way.
But now was the moment of truth. If he couldn't walk, there was little chance he could be saved.
Yeah, she's all right. You can stand.
I just couldn't believe it. The fact that he got up and I didn't have to shoot, sort of get the vet out and shoot him or whatever, was marvellous.
Incredibly, Jaffa had suffered no broken bones, no internal injuries, and beyond a few cuts and bruises, his major concern was hunger.
I mean, I really was in shock. I don't think I felt very much after that. Just couldn't believe that this had happened to us.
2 years on, Jaffa shows no signs of his ordeal and revels in his status as a local celebrity.
He's famous, isn't he? He's the pit pony of Porkellis.
Bristol Royal Infirmary's Accident and Emergency Department is at the sharp end of inner city life. The doctors and nurses who work here treat 50,000 patients a year and never know what to expect from one minute to the next, a cut finger or a life and death emergency. This week on A&E, Jeremy Reynolds deals with an unusual injury and Fiona Cookson gets into top gear. The BRI's A&E department is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round, with staff on duty to cover every kind of emergency. Their job is to treat the walking wounded, or with more serious cases, stabilise their condition before passing them on to other departments in the hospital. On any shift, they can be faced with urgent ambulance arrivals, along with the more routine cuts and broken bones.
Right. I'm Nigel, I'm one of the nurses here, and my job's just to make an assessment of what happened to you. Yeah. Okay, so just tell me all about it.
Well, yesterday morning, milking, cow took a dislike to me and kicked my arm.
And have you looked at these?
No, I haven't seen them downstairs.
Well, that's why it's painful. You've broken your arm, or your cow's broken your arm for you.
Yeah.
Doctors Jeremy Reynolds, Fiona Cookson and Dan Titcombe have been senior house officers with A&E for nearly 6 months. In a few weeks they'll be moving on to new jobs. Dan to the cardiac unit, Fiona to the children's hospital and Jeremy to do a stint teaching at Bristol University.
It's lucky, isn't it, Angela? Bugger off. Can we?
Steve Berry, a presenter on BBC Two's Top Gear programme, has been brought in by the paramedics.
115 quid this week and it's put a big hole in it.
What happened?
Fell off a girl's scooter. Been riding massive bikes all afternoon and I fell off a little scooter. Can you believe it?
Being female, you see, I didn't recognise that he was off Top Gear, but all the boys here were getting very excited.
That's valuable footage on there, isn't it? Jeremy Clarkson would pay a lot of money for
Jeremy
that.
Clarkson would pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Fiona, I'm one of the doctors here.
Hello there.
Tell me what happened again.
When I realised I'd fallen off and looked up, this foot was twisted right round. And I tried to lift myself up, and as I lifted myself up and moved the foot, it clicked back to the sort of position that you would normally expect to see your foot.
Yeah. If it's broken, then it depends how severely broken it is. It'll either be put in a plaster and seen again tomorrow by the orthopaedic surgeons, or it'll be referred to the orthopaedic surgeons today. You've got quite a bit of swelling there. I wouldn't be surprised if you'd broken it.
Right. I wouldn't either, from the way it hurt. Right. The good thing was that I was surrounded by motorcyclists who knew exactly what to do. People tend to do things like they want to take your helmet off, which is the last thing you should do. Leave the person where they fell. Don't take the bloody helmet off. It's maybe the only thing holding their head together.
So what's this going to mean if you've broken it?
It means there won't be any motorbikes in Top Gear for about, what, a month, 6 weeks, something like that.
You could ride pillion.
Well, he wants my job. He'll do it.
Senior staff nurse Sarah Brierley is seeing 92-year-old who's fallen at home.
I think you've just got to be a little bit more considerate. He's very deaf at the start. He seems to be completely with it, but he's very difficult to communicate because his hearing aid's not working as well.
All right.
Mind my driving?
Who's that?
Between cases, doctors and nurses get time to catch their breath. The BRI is a teaching hospital. Student nurses Marty, Laura and Nicola have just started a 6-week stint in A&E. They'll get the opportunity to test their skills. Steve's x-rays are back. Fiona needs to study them carefully for the minute detail that could show a fracture.
The fracture's not a clean, straight through fracture. It looks like it's in several bits. So we'll have to assess the joint space of his ankle, because if there's any compromise of that, then that's a more serious fracture and one which I would refer to the orthopaedic team rather than just put him in the plaster and give him an appointment for tomorrow morning. Why don't we take it off and try and get better views of that?
Steve Berry is off to Ward 2, where he'll be prepared for surgery on his ankle later tonight.
Now then, I've got a letter from your GP. Everything seems to make sense. The story's the same as the GP, because you always have to check it out. But it's difficult. And it takes, only you know when you've got lots of hundreds of things going on, it takes that much longer to sort it out. Can you tell us what happened?
I can, yeah, you know.
All right, turn this up.
It's difficult to diagnose the reason for fall, so he'll continue to be observed in a care for the elderly ward at Bristol's General Hospital.
Did you standing by then?
What's happening, June?
A&E staff to Major End and SHO to Resus, please.
We've got a cardiac arrest coming in.
Yeah, we've got our cardiac arrest coming in. Oh, what?
Are you here? Yeah. Oh, you never heard of blue light? Everyone's clear? Yep. Yeah. OK, let's get her over. OK. Can someone do massage?
Basically, she was an elderly lady with already had heart disease and collapse.
So they're generally down the ET tube? Yeah. Would you be happy with that? Yeah. Right, so she had 5 minutes with that.
My legs are really shaky. Just got to keep your arms straight. Just press down. Fast.
People in there. We'll tend to give people at least 10 minutes. It will also depend on the patient's medical history, may also depend on if we get anything back, if we get a cardiac rhythm. But if the heart is not working for at least 10-15 minutes, we'll have to decide to stop. I feel we should stop. Everybody agree? Yeah, she's happy.
Everything could have been done for her since when the ambulance arrived. It was done for her. Everybody that comes in, you have to try and go through the protocol until everybody around the table is happy about stopping.
You feel a lot better when you get involved. Now I've done it once. I feel all right. It's just that initial first time when you know you've been part of it.
We're starting.
Hi. Mr. Burrows?
Yes.
Hi. What's been happening to you then, sir?
Well, having a fight with the cow, I think.
Cow went, did it?
Yeah, she kicked me.
This is an animal, I take it, not a relative?
No, not too late, but yeah, not burning the rest.
No pain. How about if you go all the way?
Yeah.
That's catching it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Burrows, I'd like to come and take your jumper off.
The orthopaedic consultant decided that they don't need to operate on this to try and put the pieces back together, but just to immobilise the arm.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful timing.
Oh.
You often see people being kicked by cows in the city hospital. There we go.
It's 10 p.m. Up in Ward 2, Steve Berry is off to theatre.
I mean, I'm guessing, but I should think he'd probably be able to ride a motorbike again in about 8 to 12 weeks' time.
It takes a very special kind of person to save his own life when he's trapped and in agony, particularly when every move he makes threatens to make the whole ordeal even worse. That was the horrendous situation the lorry driver Paul Eisted found himself in after a particularly gruesome accident at a remote building site near Tunbridge Wells in Kent. With nobody around to help him, he had to draw on every ounce of his strength and his courage to save his own life.
I love the driving. My dad used to do it, so I just got some money together and passed my test just after my 21st birthday. You're your own boss, you're out on the road all the time, and to me it's just ideal. It was a Saturday. I had to go over to pick up a container which a building company had hired. The actual driveway into the house was fenced off. I got out of the vehicle, moved all the fencing, put the legs down on the lorry, got the crane out, lifted the container up. I went up onto the crane, climbed onto top. Had the straps with me, threw them down either side, come back round to the other side, and I couldn't reach them, so it was too short. So I put a pallet on its side, climbed up it, and as I was doing it, I just lost my balance. And as I came down, I felt something scratch the back of my leg. So I turned round and just literally looked, and I thought, oh, just ripped the jeans. Went to move, and then realised that this metal spike had actually gone inside of me.
Paul had become impaled on the metal spike. It may have penetrated vital organs.
And I could feel it move all up in by my hip. The actual sensation is not something you can describe. Something's gone inside of you, you know it's there, but you don't know how deep.
Help! Help! Help!
From where I was, no one could hear me, no one could see me.
Help!
I tried pulling it out of the ground, but I couldn't move it. So I grabbed hold of the strap, wrapped it around my hand and pulled myself up. And with my left hand, I kept sliding it up the pole, and I thought, we're still not out. I think it's just adrenaline. Something takes over and you just do it. So I just squeezed hold of the pole and literally sat on my hand until I wrapped it around my wrist again and pulled myself up. On the third attempt, I pulled it up and literally just pulled it out from me. I mean, 10 inches doesn't sound a lot to anyone, but when you're actually pulling it out of yourself, it's a long way, believe me. The blood came out of me that fast. It was like someone throwing a bucket of water over the back of your jeans. And you just really feel really bad. Everything goes giddy and you just feel really sick, really ill. And I thought, well, that's it, I've got to get some out.
Can anybody hear me?
There was no one there. So I thought, well, it's no good me sitting here bleeding down the step. I've got to get to a road and just hope that someone would come along. All the time I was walking, I kept saying, I've got to get up to the road, got to get up to the road, don't faint, don't faint. But no one was there. All of a sudden, turned around, this vehicle came up towards me. Seeing the vehicle come up that lane, I mean, it's like a big weight coming off your shoulders because you know that someone's found you and someone's going to actually send for help. And then when you hear that ambulance and you need it, oh, it's the best sound in this world, it is. Then you know someone's actually going to do something and get you to somewhere where they can look after you.
When we actually reached Paul, he was obviously very upset. He was in quite a good deal of pain. And, of course, there was a lot of bleeding that we could see. Obviously, a horrendous thing had happened to him.
When I pulled it out, I knew I'd done wrong. But at the time, do you leave it in you and collapse and have it impale you, go through your back or through one of your main organs? Or do you pull it out?
When we actually saw the rod, it was blood-stained. His finger crushes just went, oh, my God, he's been sort of very lucky. I wouldn't relish the idea of pulling a great big piece of metal at the back of my leg. So, yeah, I think he had a great deal of willpower there.
I mean, if it had been an inch over one way or the other, I might not have been here today, or could have been in a wheelchair. So I was very lucky, even though I got impaled, that I pulled it out and I've managed to get away with it. I'm definitely glad I can still keep driving.